Hey Optimancers, Chris here. This is my video for lore bards and their 6th level magical secrets picks. I have done an entire series for magical secrets picks. If you want to check out what I recommend for 10th level, 14th level, or 18th level bards, you can find links for those videos in the video description or in the comments section down below. But this video is for lore bards who've reached level 6, so let's get started on that. So what about our 6th level lore bard? What are they going to pick with their 6th level picks? This is one of the hardest ones for me. One of the things that's harder for a lower level bard is that they're stuck with light armor, they don't have shield proficiency, and then they have no spells really that protect themselves. Now you got cutting words, but what happens is you got an enemy coming to attack you. If you use cutting words on their first attack, you've got nothing left for any following attacks after that. The rest of the round you have no protections at all other than your studded leather armor. And it's not like we have a ton of hit points either as a bard. So if we get stuck in melee or targeted with a bunch of enemy attacks, we could be in a lot of trouble very quickly. So one of the spells I would consider for a lore bard at 6th level is shield. Now there is some redundancy with cutting words and shield because they both can reduce the chance of an enemy attack to hit. But the thing that shield provides that cutting words doesn't is that it lasts until your next turn. So every single attack that comes at you is going to have to deal with an AC of 5 higher. And that's the other thing, is that cutting words, it's a die roll, and you might roll a 1. But with a shield, you're always going to have that 5, which is a nice bonus to armor class. It's going to turn a lot of hits into misses. But I don't take that easily because it is a 1st level spell, and there's so many good 3rd level spells that I want to consider. So let's talk about those. The first one, of course, and I've already talked about this, is Counterspell. I talked about Counterspell for 10th level bards for a reason. It is such a good spell and such a notable exception from the bard spell list that I think as soon as you can take it, it's something you should consider. And that is absolutely the same for a lore bard at 6th level. The reasoning is exactly the same as I discussed when I was talking about 10th level picks. The second spell I would consider is Fireball. Just because Fireball doesn't use concentration, so it doesn't really interfere with the other bard things we can do. And Fireball is a decent spell at 6th level. 8d6 damage over a 20-foot radius sphere. You get good range, and bards don't have a lot of spells that deal damage, so you're filling a niche that bards can't really normally take care of. Bards get a lot of healing abilities, but one thing they don't get is the ability to bring somebody back to life who has died. And I think the best one of those spells is Revivify, even though it's the lowest level. Because although it's the lowest level, it's the only one that requires 1 action to cast, and it requires a lower cost spell component. So we're combining a faster casting time with a lower cost with a lower level slot. So Revivify is just a great spell for bringing back the dead. And if I was a bard at 6th level as a lore bard, I'd absolutely consider taking it. Another spell I would totally consider for a lore bard at 6th level is Conjure Animals. So Conjure Animals is normally only a druid spell, and it is one of the most powerful 3rd level spells in the game. One of the reasons why druids are kind of a standout as a class. There is such a massive change to the action economy when you start adding creatures to the battlefield that you control. So if you pick 8 creatures, for example, no matter what you get, they're probably not going to be hugely different in terms of effectiveness. This means a lot more attacks. This means a lot more damage. It also means we can fill squares that normally would not be filled. This can restrict enemy movement. We can get additional attacks of opportunity. We have creatures that can do things like the restrained condition on enemies, and these creatures can still do things like the help action. So with all those things, as a 3rd level spell, this is totally worth considering. It's worth concentrating on, and it's worth casting. Now, some lore bards are built for martial capability, and usually what that's going to involve is you're going to take something like a variant human, and then you're going to take the moderately armored feat. Or maybe you're not a variant human and you took the moderately armored feat at 4th level. This can really change things for a lore bard, because as I said, they're normally stuck with studded leather armor and a decent dex, But those two things alone don't make for a good armor class. We're usually looking at like a 15 armor class with those two things combined, which isn't a great armor class. But if we get moderately armored, we could throw on half plate and a shield, and suddenly we're looking at something like a 19 armor class, which is far more sturdy. So we might have a Lord Bard that goes into melee. If we do, then a spell I would consider is Spirit Guardians. So Spirit Guardians is going to cover a 15-foot radius effect around you. All your enemies will take damage. Your allies will not. Your enemies will also be slowed, and they have to make saving throws every turn or take even more damage. This also has a really good duration of 10 minutes, which means we can often use it for multiple battles. Now, it does use up your concentration, so you can't concentrate on anything else. But if you are a character that does go into melee, and you want to be able to do damage to enemies, Bards aren't particularly great at doing damage to enemies, but something like a Spirit Guardians can really help. And we control the battlefield as well. Again, something Bards are not normally known for. So we fill a bit of battlefield control and damage to a number of enemies, and that can be sustained round after round. Overall, I think a really strong choice for a Lore Bard that is capable of going into melee. Now, if you're not, if you are a regular Lore Bard and going into melee is probably not what you want to do, then I wouldn't worry about Spirit Guardians because the effect is stuck around you. You just won't get enough enemies with it. You really need to get several enemies with this effect in order to make it really good. And then it's not a third level spell, but I would absolutely consider Healing Spirit. Now, a lot of tables have banned Healing Spirit, and if your table has banned Healing Spirit, then obviously it's not a choice for you. But bards have the ability to do a number of healing spells. Sometimes they're expected to fill a healing role in their party. And if Healing Spirit is not banned at your table, then it is a very strong choice for your 6th level magical secrets. Because out of combat, Healing Spirit can bring back a ton of hit points to your entire party. It upcasts well. And even in combat, if you're willing to use a concentration on it, you can just move it around and you can give healing to party members that need it. It's not a lot of healing, but it can make a difference, especially if party members are going down. You can bring them back up with the Healing Spirit spell. Now, one spell I wouldn't take with my bard with magical secrets at 6th level that I hear about is Eldritch Blast. I hear people saying that you should take Eldritch Blast as a cantrip with your 6th level magical secrets because bards don't have good attack cantrips. Okay, bards don't have good attack cantrips. That is absolutely true. But using a 6th level ability that could provide you a very powerful spell for a cantrip that does cantrip level damage is not worth it. Eldritch Blast is a decent attack cantrip on its own. It can be an excellent attack cantrip if we're combining it with Agonizing Blast and or Repelling Blast and or the Hex spell, but we've got none of those things. So with a bard, essentially what you have is a spell that's going to be doing about the same damage as a Firebolt, and either of those spells just aren't a good selection for a 6th level character, because even a wizard is not casting Firebolt that much at 6th level. It's what they do when they have nothing good to do. For you to use a resource to grab that just makes no sense at all. And yes, Eldritch Blast gives you additional attacks at level 5, level 11, and level 17. But these are 1d10 each if they hit, and that's it. There's nothing added to them. So even if you hit with all 4 at 17th level, we're talking about 22 points of damage on average with a 17th level character using their action. That is terrible damage for that level, and it's just not worth it. The scaling doesn't keep up with what all characters can do. Bards are not particularly specialized in cantrips that do damage. If you want to have a cantrip that does damage, you kind of have to multiclass. Then, if you multiclass 2 levels of Warlock, you can enhance that Eldritch Blast with Agonizing Blast and Hex, and now it's a good cantrip. But if we take it and we haven't taken Warlock and we don't have any invocations and we don't have any spells that pile onto an Eldritch Blast to increase the damage, it just doesn't cut it. Lore bards just aren't great at doing single target damage at range. It's just the way it is. When you get to level 9, that will change. You can use animate objects, then you can do single target damage at range. That's pretty effective. But through levels 1 through 8, the purpose of a lore bard is to do other stuff. So that's my list of Bard's magical secrets. If you have spells that you think are really good for Bard magical secrets, let us know in the comments down below. As I mentioned, if you haven't checked out the other parts of this series, there are links for those down below. Otherwise, I'm going to sit back and relax and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everyone for checking out this one, and I hope to see you soon.